Hey, Alan, thanks for coming on the show. How are you today?
And I always want to start with gratitude. I started listening to podcasts 9 years ago after a tough car accident I got in, and they really helped me sort of reorchestrate my life in a much more positive direction. And now that's what I do for a living. So I'm very grateful to be here, and I do not take it lightly either. That's the thing is, whatever you give your attention to is really dictating a lot of your future.
Hmm.
Because what you focus on changes everything, and so I don't take it lightly. I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for coming on the show. And I love having people start with gratitude. Tell us about yourself. Where are you from originally?
Okay, so from Massachusetts, originally a little town called Uxbridge. I actually still live in the northern part of that town,
Okay.
sort of unexpectedly. Went to college in Worcester, Massachusetts,
Hmm.
and ended up sort of back unexpectedly the northern part of that town. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I used to live up in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and I had a service area that included Uxbridge, North Uxbridge. So
No,
it's
so
small world.
you know the place.
Yes, it's probably changed in the last 20 years since I've been there last, but I knew the elementary school was at and a couple restaurants.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it
small world.
probably hasn't changed as much as you think.
Okay.
There's certain parts of the area that change more rapidly than others. I think Uxbridge had not changed that much actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, did you went to school at Worcester, Massachusetts? What did you study there?
So WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, kind of like a mini MIT. For those of you who don't know, it's one of the best engineering colleges in the world, and it was atrociously difficult. But I studied computer engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Why
was
was it?
electrical and computer engineering, but we
Yeah,
went down the computer road, so
gotcha.
more software. Yeah,
So why was it difficult? What made it difficult?
just the engineering school. I playfully joke I say is one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Okay,
I think just engineering in general is one of the hardest majors in the world. Probably the hardest, if I'm honest.
interesting.
Yeah, and so if you go to one of the top schools, so you basically need a 700 or above on your math SATs just to even be considered.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're surrounded by that many, sort of math, science, semi geniuses,
Mm-hmm.
tech, it sets the bar very very low, and then you have to kind of rise to that occasion. So whereas if you're when you're in high school, there's some people that are not as gifted maybe, and so they keep things like for me, high school felt really easy, all things considered. I got straight A's, and I definitely was sort of gifted.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I got to college, it was okay, so this is the major leagues, and everyone here is good at math. So
It's interesting because like when I went to college, I went to Johnson and Wales University right down the street in Providence, Rhode Island.
nice, nice,
And when I was in high school, I found high school to be really difficult because I had zero interest in what they were teaching. It was like I
yeah,
didn't care about the classics, I didn't care about different things. And when I got to college and university level, it became like the handcuffs were off and like I was running and I was like it was all about business and all about like things I was interested in. So I was like jumping in there. Maybe the competition was very challenging, but I never felt that way. I just felt like I was enjoying myself and it
nice,
was not an issue to be like, oh, I'm going to class today. It's like, I'm going to class today. Like, learn something
nice.
new. Yeah.
I partied too much. I partied too much. I still did well. I graduated with high distinction. I surrounded myself with literally geniuses.
Hmm.
One of them works at Apple. One of them, so they do very well. All of them are multimillionaires at this stage,
Nice.
on their way to it, anyways. And but yeah, I mean, engineering school was you can't mess around. You
No,
can't mess around. Yeah.
no, yeah, not one bit. So, after engineering school, what was your first career out of school?
First career out of school, I worked for a company called iRobot. They do the Roomba.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
What
I
did you
worked
do
on
for
the.
them?
What'd you say?
What did you do for them?
Yeah, so I was an intern. That was my first internship, and I worked on the product management team. It was pretty cool, uh, and I got to learn from all these different people because all their different product lines on the consumer side rather. Because iRobot also has a government contract
Hmm.
military side
Yep.
as well. So we did the consumer robotics, which I think I've been a little surprised at how slowly the consumer robotics have taken hold. Because when I was back there, I remember thinking consumer robotics is going to be the next biggest thing,
Hmm.
and I predicted, my predictions were social media,
Hmm.
esports,
Yep.
smartware, and then consumer robotics. And that fourth one is the only one that didn't really manifest as quickly as I expected.
Well, I think there's something about having someone come into your house that's not a family member, that's kind of an outside
I know.
item. And like there's a whole generation that like I think we're the last generation. I'm um
Gen
the last
X.
generation where it was like payphone, take a quarter to school, and like if you need to call, find a spot. Now like I talk to like having payphones on rotary phones, and like kids are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Uh but like
I
there's
remember the floppy disk.
yes, the floppy
Yeah.
disk, and then it got smaller.
Yeah, 1.5 megs on a floppy disk
Yeah,
when I
they
was in middle school. Yeah.
yeah, the CDs, and then they had the small CDs, and we got angry about the small CDs. We just saved all the stuff on the big CD. So
Yep.
yeah, it was a but where I was going with that was the idea of we had a generation of people that really didn't want to have something on the outside coming into their house because they'd watched Terminator and all these other
I
movies.
know.
And I think that kind of swayed them to be like, yeah, no, we're not going to have that in our house.
When I first got to iRobot, I remember being one of the CEO at the time is one of my main mentors, and I remember at the time being like, "Why? I have someone who could do that overnight." We were sending these little USB software update hubs in the mail
Hmm.
to update the Roombas,
Yeah.
and then having them mail them back. And I remember thinking, I just came out of college, right? So I'm thinking, Wi-Fi in the robots? What are we, But it's because of that. It's people didn't want someone to be able to remote control into their robot
Hmm.
from outside, and obviously that has changed, Tesla and all that. But my goodness, has that taken a long time to come up? To come up,
Yeah, I
like we
still
just
don't.
see Optimus now.
Yeah, I don't think we're really still there because there's still like privacy concerns and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And like you see online where you're like on YouTube, especially where they ask Alexa or Siri, are you listening to me? Are you connected to the CIA? And it shuts down or gives some sort of pat answer or refuse
Yeah,
to answer the question. There's moments like that where I think it freaks people out. Um,
yeah.
but a lot of times, like in most cases for what you were building, it's just a useful tool to help make your life easier. And why
Mm-hmm.
would not someone want to have a useful tool to make their lives easier? Um, but you can't get past that mindset. So, uh,
Real quick, if you don't mind me,
yeah, of course.
this is the fascinating thing about every tool that makes your life easier comes with a downside.
Hmm.
It always comes with a downside, and that's why innovation is so challenging. Because the moment you innovate in your personal life or your professional life or technology, it creates a new problem,
Yeah.
right? So for example, climate change is the new problem with all the technologies that we've created. So and now we need to create technology to solve that problem, which will create another problem.
Correct.
And so life is a series of problems, essentially.
Yeah.
So if your attitude isn't positive about that, you're in some serious trouble.
No, you're 1,000%. I mean, having a positive motivational mindset that's forward thinking makes a big difference. Like not everyone has that. Some people are very like limited in their positive mental attitude. They're just pessimists by nature. Um, so, but yeah, I think like we can look at that in all stages, even from AI now, where people are like really positive, like AI brings so much to the table with these AI workers. And I've talked to a few people on the show where they're like, hey, this is a problem because it's taking jobs away from people because there's multiple functions that were editors and whatnot that AI wise, you could just do it snap of a finger, 30 minutes later, the project is done. Uh,
But that's always been the case. And I worked in industrial automation. I worked for a company called Cognex. We sold machine vision,
mhm.
machine vision equipment.
Yeah.
So there's, water bottles going down a line. It takes pictures of everyone, makes sure it's quality assurance. And I would walk in and I'd see pictures on the walls. This is actually what sparked me starting Next Level University, because I saw this issue happening where
Hmm.
you'd see pictures on the walls of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and it'd be a factory full of workers. And now it's one factory floor, one floor manager, and it's all
Hmm.
robotics and machine
Yeah.
vision. And so I would sell this machine vision equipment, the eyes of robotics. I'd make a big bonus as a young professional, and then it would take jobs. There'd be people that were used to look at the ice cream carton. I remember this one time in a large ice cream manufacturer that you could think of, and they would just be sitting there looking to make sure the cartons are good and then
Hmm.
putting them in the bin. My equipment did that much better, faster, right? And equipment breaks down, but it doesn't get sick. It doesn't need benefits, like that kind of thing.
Yep.
And so I remember thinking to myself, interesting. So I'm generating a lot of wealth. I had, paid off 84 grand worth of debt in a single year. I had
Mm-hmm.
150 grand in a Vanguard account. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. Like my expenses were really low, and I was just building wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And a big math guy. And I would take these jobs, and I would say, okay, so the better I do, the less jobs there are. Now, on one hand, that's going to happen regardless of me, and it's up to each of us to take responsibility to retool and to make sure we're valuable in the marketplace.
Of course.
On the other hand, if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem, right? So I'm sitting there going, okay. And one of the big challenges that I saw, I was too much of a coward to share this publicly in the past, but I did see this happening. So the less educated population was having more children and having them younger. And the more educated population was having less children and they were having them older. So Emilia and I haven't had any
Mm-hmm.
children yet, but when we do, it'll be, two
How old are
children.
you right now?
I'm 36. I always joke I look 15, but now I've got the beard going, so who knows? But anyways, so 36 and she's 30.
Okay.
And so we're waiting on purpose. And a lot of people that statistically,
Mm-hmm.
don't hate me for this, statistically speaking, the more educated population tends to wait longer and have less children statistically. And you can look that up. I mean, that's obvious.
No, I mean, I have one child myself, and me and my wife started a little bit later in life. So you're pretty much on target. And your wife being 30, I think they say it's between like 32 and 38 is when certain populations start having, I don't want to sound like elitist, but certain populations have children where like other populations had of a younger age.
Yep.
And yeah, it's interesting case studies that you can read about and reference that, but you're right on point with what you're saying.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And so here's what I saw: exponential increase in the less educated, less affluent population,
Hmm.
and then an exponential decrease in the amount of jobs available to them.
Hmm.
Because if you go to any Walmart now, I mean, it's all kiosks, and they're slowly just self
Yep.
checkout, and that
Hmm.
makes sense. There's security and everything, so automated security systems, and I'm all for it. I'm a technology guy. I mean, my car like comes to me,
Hmm.
literally. It's like I'm from a James Bond movie. So I'm a technology guy, computer engineer, love it. However, I do understand it freaks a lot of people out. There's a lot of people out there that don't have tech skills,
Hmm.
and if I can just give one olive branch, you need those. Like, get them now. You are. I had one person, I care about him deeply. He works as a volunteer for one of my charities. His name's Derek.
Hmm.
And I found out he's like, yeah, I don't even have a laptop. And he had no. I was like, oh, do you understand what that means? Like,
He
you
doesn't.
you
He has no idea.
he has no idea. Like, your future is gone. Like, you need to learn computers.
It's
You
very, very
need
limited. Very
Yeah, you
like,
need to learn computers,
yeah.
and unless you're in the trades, and then you're,
But even there, like if you want to be in a higher paying trade position, you need to
yeah,
have at least a laptop because
yep,
there's emails that are coming through and there's communications coming through
yep,
that are like there's ERPs now and CRMs where like things are happening on the back end where you need to be able to order parts and pieces through the ERP or um, just handle things accordingly, just in your own framework, like ecosystem, as it were, of a business online. So even though you're putting a nail to a hammer to a piece of wood, there's still a lot of other moving parts in the background. Unless you just
100%.
want to be a nail, putting a hammer in a wood and handyman style, never really grow. Not saying anything bad about handymen that are out there, because there's some handymen that have a very strong uh, ecosystem in the background online, and they are like Mr. Handyman, multi-million dollar, billion-dollar company, I think.
100%.
Um, anyway, I digress.
I appreciate this conversation because when Derek said that, obviously I'll keep it anonymous, first names only, but like he thought nothing of it, and my brain went, oh, screwed.
Hmm.
Like I mean, listen, it's almost 2025.
Hmm.
If you don't know technology and you don't know computers and you don't know how to use these tools, I mean, there's 8 billion humans on the planet. There's 5.58 billion human beings on the internet, and that's exponentially increasing with Starlink.
Hmm.
You need to know these tools. You have to. And if you don't, you will. It's like you're gonna blame the world instead
Hmm.
of take personal responsibility for the fact that you never learned these tools. The trades, all these different things, like in the 21st century, it's just very important to take personal responsibility, because ultimately there's a lot of people that are complaining about how their lives aren't turning out the way they wanted, but at the same time, those are the people that weren't really learning these things that are very clearly the future. So ignorance is not bliss, it's devastation if you're not careful.
Yeah, you have to pick your battles. And I know like wealth between family generations always goes down after two or three generations where you don't have that mindset. Um, Not to get too off track, but you had said that you had grown up in Worcester. Was your family members also engineers, or what were they do when you were growing up?
Definitely not. Definitely not. So I'm smiling now only because I made it out, really, but
Hmm.
my childhood was atrocious. There was some good spots, some good things. So my father passed away when I was 2 in a car when he was 28.
Okay.
I had a stepfather, so my real last name is actually McCorkle. So John McCorkle was my father. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. Big Irish Catholic family. He was one of 6. And he passed away when he was 28 in
Hmm.
1991. I was born in 88, so I was almost 3.
Hmm.
So I was 2.5. He passed away. My stepfather's name is Steve Lazaros, and a lot of people that they see that last name. It's a very Greek last name.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
They look
Italian
at
Greek.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so they look at me and they go, Lazarus, because blonde hair, blue eyed. Used to
Yeah.
say not a hair on me before my little goatee I got going, but yeah, it was just a weird thing. My mom and stepdad didn't get along, and that's a polite way to put it on a public medium.
Hmm.
Never used to have the courage to share any of this. And one of the good things about my childhood I need to be clear about.
Hmm.
Stepdad worked for a company called AGFA, Hospital Computers, during the dot-com bubble, so we did well. And honestly, let's be honest, in the 90s, I mean, almost everyone was doing really well.
Hmm.
Honestly, I mean, it's just economic boom times. I don't want to say everyone, but statistically speaking, that decade was wild. And it seemed like everyone had money back then.
Hmm.
You remember?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
like there was a thing where everyone got their kid a Toyota Corolla. That was the number one selling new car for high school students because they had the income and they had the excess income, so they would get Corollas. And there's
yeah,
still these mini Toyota Corollas from the 90s and slight early 2000s that are on the road
I
because it's like you see them, and it's like you were a part of that uh boom where you had people retiring, they were getting the golden parachute, or they were just getting so much money from their stock. They're like, hey, let's just retire.
I
So yeah.
know. How wild are those times in hindsight?
Yeah, you
Like
look back and you don't really consider it, but it all kind of makes sense.
it is unreal how I mean it was boats and ski trips. My stepdad had a motorcycle. We had trucks. My mom drove a BMW. We had an
Hmm.
apartment building. I mean everybody, and then all their friends. I mean I think people were running amok. I genuinely am disappointed. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just like
That's
we
fine.
lost our minds. I think a little bit. Like particularly in the U.S. If you look at the economy globally, like we kind of lost our mind, and people were just I mean, I think we were very unintelligent, to be honest, with the way we were overly optimistic. And I get it. I do get it. But then the 2000s, I mean, you got the early 2000s and then '08. I mean, everyone buttoned up after that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they realized, oh, okay, so you can't just frolic and win forever, right? You have to actually work.
Hmm.
But anyways, so I have a little bit of resentment, obviously, for my childhood. My mom and stepdad were not intelligent with the way that they did things, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And so stepdad left at 14, took 90% of the income with him. I went from boats and ski trips to free lunch at school now because our income is so low, and I didn't know how I was going to go to college because WPI was 50 grand a year,
Hmm. Which
and
is
I didn't know
very,
how.
very good back in the day. That
I
was
know,
very good. Yeah.
I know, yeah. And so I didn't know how I was going to go, so I just my trauma response to losing because we didn't associate with the McCorkles anymore.
Hmm.
And then the Lazaruses left, and then my mom got in a fight with my aunt Sandy, and so we got kind of ostracized from her side of the family too. So I became this weird sort of semi-abandonment issue super achiever guy
Hmm.
who just got straight A's through all of high school, got the President's Award behind me, signed by George W. Bush,
Hmm.
and I got all the scholarships and financial aid that I possibly could, and I got into WPI, and then I had to really work hard because those were academic based financial aid and scholarships, and then it was off to the races. And then when I graduated college, it was 2011 with my bachelor's, 2012 with my master's, And in hindsight, this is 2013, 2014, 2015. I mean, economic boom again, and especially with tech.
Mm-hmm.
So I became super sought after.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 65 to 85, 85 to 105, 105 to 125. And then I peaked at almost 200K a year in my early 20s. So, I mean, I was used to having no money. So broke high school and college student to now all of a sudden I'm making insane amounts of money. And
Yeah.
I kind of lost my mind a little bit too. And then I got my car accident at 26, which really got me focused because physically we were okay. My little
Mm-hmm.
cousin and I, second cousin, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, this is the second chance my dad never got. And so after that, that's when I started my own company and I went all in on self improvement instead of external achievement. And obviously, achievement is still a part of me, but it's
Of
not the
course.
main
Yeah, it
focal
never
point.
really goes away. It just kind of evolves.
Yeah,
So the car accident, let's talk a little bit about that. What type of car accident? Was it a head-on collision? Was it side swipe? What happened?
this is exactly that. So head on collision, my fault.
Your
So I
fault.
was
So you
driving.
take ownership. It was like, hey, this is not even like a second guess. What
No, it was entirely on me. I was on the wrong side of the road.
really?
So
Okay.
2015, dark winter.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Snowbanks are covering the yield signs. Three-way
Mm-hmm.
intersection up in New Hampshire with my second cousin. So only two human beings from my mom's side have ever sort of come back.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's name is Jeff, my cousin, and then my second cousin Dan was in the car with me. We're driving to TGI Fridays. I look down at the GPS. I look up. I'm on the wrong side of the road. I was supposed
Mm-hmm.
to yield and I didn't. And what I thought was a Mack truck. Luckily, it was a lift-kitted pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
And then, most importantly, thank you, Volkswagen. I drove a 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in 5 grand cash because to me, I didn't need much. I wasn't flashy,
Yeah, yeah.
especially after being kind of a broken high school and college student. And that car I used to call the tank. And it was just a German engineered steel trap of a car. And so both airbags deployed.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face in the airbag, but ultimately we were physically okay, rattled, but physically okay. Not a fender bender. I mean, I see pictures of this car. I usually show them in my speeches. It was, the whole front end is completely smashed in, and then the
Mm-hmm.
frame stayed. Found out later that it's one of the safest cars,
Oh yeah.
Volkswagen Passat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like there's certain cars that are just made very, very well. I'm a big fan of Jeeps because they have cast iron bumpers and they are also a steel frame and
nice.
it's a tank. It's another tank type of vehicle.
Yeah,
And like Volkswagens are the same way, Volvos. There's
yep,
certain ones that are just they were built with a lot of thought and care in mind. And granted, the Jeeps don't get great gas mileage. So
yeah.
I enjoy driving my Jeep every day. And I just know when I go to the gas tank, it's like my happy tax in life.
Nice, nice. But at least
Yeah.
you're safe.
Oh yeah,
I If I was in one of those little Toyota Corollas, I
you'd
would
be
not be here. I would not be here.
you'd
Yeah.
be toast. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd be toast. And I know that. And so my dad died in a car at 28. So for me, this was just my existential quarter life crisis for sure.
gotcha. So your whole mindset did a shift. Where were you working before the car accident? Because you said, "Hey, I'm now going to start my own business," and that's a radical change. What were you doing prior to that?
Yeah, I was working at that company called Cognex. So I
Okay.
did a lot of sort of 2011, 2012 bachelor's, master's. And then after that, I job hopped a bunch.
Mhm.
I robot, Sensata Technologies, Lens Americas, a little company called Oz Development, product engineer, inside sales engineer, outside sales engineer, global product manager. That was interesting. All
Mhm.
the responsibility, none of the authority.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. But I learned a ton, right?
Hmm.
And then Cognex, I eventually ended up at. So at the time, I was 26 years old. It was
Okay.
2015. And I was working at Cognex at the time as an outside sales engineer. So my territory was Vermont, Connecticut, and Western Massachusetts.
Okay.
And that was when I was selling machine vision equipment.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Were you already dating your current wife at the time, or was she not in the picture yet?
not in the picture yet.
Okay.
I was dating a woman named Courtney. We lived on a lake, and I remember my rent was $500. And it was
The good days.
yeah, the good old days, man. $500 each. We split it. It was it was
Yeah,
a modest
250 bucks.
place,
Yeah,
but
yeah. It
yeah,
like crazy world.
no
Yeah.
mortgage, no kids, right? So
Yep.
I just had tons of money, so I just invested it all. And then
Yeah.
I, of course, started my own company and went broke. So we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, it was just you're just making me think when I was in my first job with the corporation, I had like really good rent and my business biggest expense, excuse me, was my cell phone because I was using a cell phone so much for so many calls, and at that time it was per minute, and I was getting
Whoa.
reimbursed. So I was using Nextel with the walkie-talkie feature, and like I kid you not, my monthly bill is $250.
No kidding. And that's
Yeah,
back then.
that
So
was
that's
back
like
then.
$600 now. Yeah.
Yeah, but like now they at least they have unlimited call, unlimited data, and you can get like
Yeah.
even a cheapy boost phone for like $40 a month, which I would have like rolled over and died about because that would have been like $2,000 a year in savings.
Just so I can get reference, I'm a numbers guy,
Yeah,
right? So can I ask your age?
I'm 47,
47.
48,
Okay.
47,
So
48. I stopped counting after 45.
so you're the Atari generation. You've Atari.
If you
Yeah.
say so. I mean like I did a lot of Nintendo. So like
Nintendo. Okay. Original
but yeah, I
Nintendo.
remember we had Sega and we had Atari. That was precursor platforms. We had AOL, America Online.
Yeah.
That was like the chat rooms were a big thing back in my generation.
Yeah. 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 Chat
So
rooms. Yeah.
yeah, we were the last generation of a lot of certain things in life where you would just go out and like now you have like low jack your kid, smartphone, smartwatch, smart everything. I would just go into downtown, like because I live between two cities, like
Where'd you
relatively
grow
small
up?
city, New Jersey.
Nice.
Yeah, so I would go into downtown Matawan, New Jersey, and ride my bike there. And they had a beautiful little downtown district. And me and my friends would just enjoy it. And we would do different things. My scout troop was down in downtown Matawan. And then I just ride my bike back. And that was a good couple miles. And like there were
Nice.
gullies, valleys. There was a lake which was known for having sharks in it because it fed directly from the ocean. So
Whoa.
if you after this, if you go online and look up Matawan, New Jersey, Shark Attack Lake or Lake Shark Attack, Matawan, New Jersey will pop up as a place. So like you weren't worried about the snapping turtles. It-
Whoa.
you would like legit have to.
No, 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 no. Nope. Not for me. I grew up on a small pond, big lake. No. Small big pond, small lake. Snapping turtles were huge in this thing. And I grew up snorkeling and fishing and sort of pre-internet too,
Mhm.
right? Cuz 1994 Amazon.com was founded. So what? Google's only 27 years old, I think. 28 years old now.
Yeah, I mean it's we like my generation actually was pre Facebook, pre Google, pre
Yeah.
all of that. So it came about during my lifetime. And like the fascinating aspect of like growing up during that generation, at that point, even with you, because you were like a contemporary, really, we would have conversations of like, hey, there's this Facebook thing. You should check it out and try it out.
I remember that. I remember when Facebook was only college emails. I was in college during that. So in 2007, 2008, I went into
Mhm.
freshman year of college in 2008. I was mining for Bitcoin in my freshman dorm room
Really?
at WPI. Yeah,
That's really cool. Did you make money doing that, or was that a bust?
bust.
Okay.
I think
Like,
my roommates and like friends might have, but I mean we didn't know, right? We
you got to try. Like,
yeah.
in college, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a trip to think back. Hindsight is so much clearer.
Hmm.
Like, we didn't know. I mean, if we knew, we'd all. I mean, what if you put $100 into Bitcoin in like 2010? You'd be like $100 million or something, something wild.
But I mean, it's one of those things that like
Yeah,
there
yeah,
were
yeah.
so many choices that you look at the penny stocks, and I did some research on penny stocks back in the day, and it was sort of like for everyone that makes it, you have like 10,000 stocks that fail. And that
Exactly. So it's
that
so easy to.
particular, yeah, you
Yep.
could just pick the wrong one, you just never know, and it goes
Yeah.
bankrupt belly up,
Yep.
or if you're lucky, you get your money back out of it and it's like you break even.
Yeah.
Um, but you just like blue chip stocks, you don't know what the future blue chip stock is. I mean, like I saw a recent thing online where they were looking at Dell and Nvidia. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly.
And Nvidia. Yeah.
Nvidia.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always see it, never knew how to pronounce it, so I'm not
No
gonna lie.
worries. No worries. You obviously you weren't a big gamer then.
I
Nvidia was
uh,
like the
I
the
mean,
bee's knees for the gamers.
I have a web business, so I mean I have Synology boxes. They're like my personal cloud server that I utilize. So I have a need for some of it, but I mean it's got a gaming laptop to actually do more
Nice.
work
Same.
related outside of here, but it's not really purpose driven. Like I have a good friend that was in my business prior to the pandemic, and he was a gamer, and
Nice.
like he
So
was.
he remembers the Diablo 2, Halo,
Hmm, hmm.
StarCraft 1, StarCraft 2. I was a big gamer back in the day.
Yeah,
Halo 1 and Halo 2. Halo 2, I was ranked 20th in the world, Bungie.net. And I did semi pro gaming for a time. It was just a wild times. But you didn't realize back then like how big esports were going to be. So I always joke, I say, I got a girlfriend and went to college. Huge mistake. I'm kidding. But I have some friends of mine that I used to play with that are sponsored multimillionaires, right? Just from playing video games now. So what a trip.
it's crazy from making the video games to playing the video games to like all the things that surround it. Um, it's really, really cool. So, jumping back around, I know we're like getting a little bit off track, and I want to keep us a little on track because we can
Mm-hmm.
go down the road of just generational things right
Yeah,
now for like
nostalgic tech. That's what the
two
name of this episode
hours.
will be. The next nostalgic tech with a Gen Xer and a millennial, you know?
Yeah. You, after the car accident, started Next Level University. Is that correct? Or did you do something between Next Level University and the car accident?
I did. So, car accident happens,
Mm-hmm.
leave Cognex,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of quit, decide that corporate isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I went all in on a company called Lazaros LLC. What you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know was the tagline. Desperately was all caps. And I wanted to bring personal development to the school systems. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
bring personal development to the masses. And in some ways, that's actually what I do now.
Yeah.
But to me, self improvement, personal development, personal growth was never really a thing in my childhood. As a matter
Mm-hmm.
of fact, it was alarmingly not a thing. uh, and so when I found self improvement, I found my calling. It was after that, it was fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach. Fitness was sort of my vehicle.
Okay.
I would be a motivational speaker. I'd speak at high schools and colleges, and good luck getting speeches with that tagline: "What you'll never learn in school, but desperately need to know." But my whole thing was, why aren't schools teaching these things like mindset
Mm-hmm.
or nutrition or the fundamentals of fitness or uh, effective communication, humility, courage, and vulnerability, character focus. Why aren't we teaching these very simple fundamental things that really are the underpinnings of how to design a wonderful life?
Mm-hmm.
Fulfillment. How do you be fulfilled? How do you create a meaningful life? How do you choose a career that's aligned with your skills and your calling? What
Mm-hmm.
is your calling? Like all these things, right? So to me, it's alarming. I mean, I think the school system does a really good job with math, science, and writing and reading. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it does a very good job in almost anything else. And again, I don't want to sound pretentious with that. But I didn't take my first finance course till my master's in business. What is that about? We use money every day. We eat food
Mm-hmm.
every day. We
Mm-hmm.
talk to people every day. We don't learn anything about effective communication and relationships. We don't learn anything about finance, and we don't learn anything about food for the most part, and
Yeah.
and
I,
fitness.
honestly, like I live with an educator, so I could tell you like the other side of the coin is they are just desperately trying to get the basics locked down.
Yeah.
Um, it might take away, and I'm not speaking on her behalf whatsoever. So anyone that's listening, I'm not speaking on behalf of my wife or the education community. This is my perspective. A
Yep.
little,
Yeah. Little disclaimer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, it would have to be a much longer day in school for it to be
Yeah.
successful because we cut off so early. Like my daughter goes to school from like 9:30 to like 4:05 to actually do like the additional things that I feel and you probably feel similar about. There's a lot of things that should be covered. They should be going to school at like 6 in the morning and getting out at 6 at night to really cover so much more ground that is not being covered. Um, and given school district by school district, like certain school districts, I know there's one in New York City that actually has a very, very long day for gifted and talented inner city kids from
Nice.
at-risk communities, and they are in the school building for like 12 plus hours. And it's,
Whoa.
yeah, it's a great, you can watch documentaries on them. They're very, very intelligent, very talented, and like up and coming. But that's kind of an outlier in a lot of ways because there's a lot of school districts that don't apply that philosophy, and there's some of them that apply the philosophy only so much and only take it so far. So, um,
Well, this goes to a higher
mhm.
conversation too. Of I actually think that human potential is far greater than what most people think. I mean, I've done what I don't know, 2,500 podcasts at this stage, and the we are more adaptive and we can adapt more than people think. I just think we don't redline. And again, this is kind of my own side tangent here. I'm an engineer. I always disclaimer that
Hmm.
we are barely scratching our true potential, and it bothers me a lot because if you find what a child is passionate about and you put them in an environment with people who share that mutual passion,
Hmm.
there's a way to help them really. I mean, the amount of mastery that you can do as a kid is wild. The amount of time and effort that I put into mastering video games, can you imagine if I had channeled that toward an actual career? Now, again, you have to dabble, you have to learn. You don't know if you don't love tennis until after you do tennis, right? So you have to explore as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think that the lid of our potential is perceived as so much lower than it actually is.
Okay. So that's curious because I was making a note when you were just mentioning that because I was like, that's really something I want to like think about. So I sometimes make notes during podcasts. When you say a red line, is it based upon like throughout someone's course of their life or in their early life when it's just like, okay, I'm like between like 0 and 20 is the highest potential to learn new things, or is it throughout someone's lifetime?
Yeah, I think it's lifetime. However, if you study the myelin sheath and neuroscience of this and
Hmm.
neuropsychology, the kids are very quick to create what's known as a myelin sheath, which is uh, insulation around neurons that make them fire more fast and more accurately. So
Hmm.
when I played video games as a kid, little did I know I was getting smarter because I always played competitive real time strategy games and I played competitive first person shooter games.
Hmm.
And so I was probably less creative, but I was extremely strategic. And that's what I do for a living now. I'm a business coach. I'm a business strategist. I call it business coach. But all I really do is align someone's goals, metrics, habits, systems, skills, and identity. And what I'm really doing is reaching deep inside and sort of re engineering them,
Gotcha.
reprogramming them in a way that's aligned with their true potential ultimately. But I, I, I would say this. I'll give an example.
Hmm.
Emilia and I, we've exercised, and I used to be too much of a coward to share this because I don't like to be so separate from other people because a lot of people struggle to exercise. So we've passed 2.5 years every day of exercise. It started with 30 minutes, and now we're at 45 minutes. And we went from 30 to 35, and we built up over time. And so we decided to do this starting in March 1st of 2022. And I wanted to beat my record of 4 months, and we got past that. And she's like, well, let's go for a year. And then we got past that. She said, let's do this for the rest of our life. And I had a mini panic attack uh, because I said to her, I said, listen, if I'm going to commit to this, I don't mess around. I dial everything up to 11. I'm an obsessive. Okay. Disclaimer, I'm an obsessive. And so we've done it every day for over 2.5 years. Last time I checked, March 1st, 2022.
Okay.
And the reason I mentioned that is because we did a 5K with her family. They have a place on the lake in Mass. And we did a 5K. It was awesome. And then the next day we swam. And this
Mhm.
was when we were doing 35 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and her mom is a little scared of the water. And it was a choppy day on a
Hmm.
lake. And there was a lot of boats and a lot of waves. And Emilia and I were struggling. We did a 5K the day before, 2.5 years of exercise. We were having a hard time going from dock to dock, and swimming for 35 minutes without a break
Hmm.
can be challenging after a 5K.
Yeah.
And she was timing us. Her mom was timing us. And
Be
as soon
honest.
as I kept asking the time, like, hey, what's the time? What's the time? Right? Because I got to get out of this water.
You're like, you got 17 minutes, buddy. Keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Literally. Emilia's like, stop asking the time. I don't want to know. But afterwards, she said that was a little dangerous. And I said, what do you mean? My mom was there. You're there. We all know how to swim. There's
Hmm.
docks. Like, we're fine. Right. And again, Vicky's her mom. And I would tell this to Vicky's face. We already talked about it. But like, Vicky's afraid of the water a little bit. And
Hmm.
Vicky doesn't know how to swim. I grew up on a lake. Like, I could
Hmm.
have swam for another 3 hours pretty easily without actually being in any real danger.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by redlining is human beings get pulled back from the ledge long before they ever come close to the ledge. And certain people don't. That's like Olympic athletes, for example. They are constantly finding that edge and then pushing it farther
Hmm.
and pushing it farther and pushing it farther. And I do that too,
Hmm.
but I didn't start doing that until after 26. I mean, I think I always naturally did it because I was so obsessive, But we are so much more capable long term than I think anyone thinks. And I think the science, if you study the research of peak performance, I mean, it's so clear that the compound effect of small incremental improvements over time. If you crunch the numbers on this, I'll go real quick with this, but I do this with my clients. I had a client named Cole, still do. He said, I'm thinking about going to weekly. And I said, okay, awesome. Let me show you the math of this. Now, again,
Mhm.
I'm an engineer. Everything's math. Everything's formulas, numbers, and statistics. So,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, fair. I always got to say that because otherwise, Kevin, my business partner, you know Kev,
Oh
he
yeah.
says every time you say, "Hey, I'm an engineer," it gives you permission to be a dick. I said, "No, no, no. It gives me permission to be cold and calculated," which is what everyone thinks engineers are, right?
Yeah.
He calls me a cyborg. But anyways, so it's like Spock. So here's the math. I said, Cole, let me tell you what you just did. I said, is it fair that I can help you improve yourself by 1% per week? Just 1% per week, yourself. He said, yeah, of course. I said, okay, we have a system, metrics and habits that we track. It's called a peak performance tracking. I do it with all my clients. Do you think I can help you improve your system by 1% per week? And he said, yeah, of course. I said, okay, can you improve the execution of that system? Meaning you actually doing it by 1% per week. He said, yeah. I said, okay, so that's 3% per week that you think I can help you accelerate your life. He said, yeah. I said, go to a financial calculator. I showed him this. Throw $1 in the financial calculator. $1. 520 weeks is 10 years. 52 weeks a year, 10 years. 520 weeks, it comes to $4.7 million. If you improve by 3% per week, which by the way is totally doable,
Hmm.
not per day, that's impossible, but per week, that's doable, you become 4.7 million times more capable. And then if you do it for another decade, it's 4.7 million times that. Human potential is limitless mathematically. I'm not saying this as some fortune cookie quote. I'm saying it's
No, no,
limitless
you're
now.
you're 100% on point. I mean, like you look, there's a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell
Mhm.
that literally takes your concept and applies it in a slightly different way because he's a writer by nature, but he hits that same 10-year marker, and he says if you do this something brand new, you're going to be this far along and this far along, and then he like shows case studies of kids that came along and went different directions. Outstanding book, and actually that changed my life because that was one eye-opening moment for me to start my businesses. Was like, hey, you know what, yeah, I'm down, let's do this. um Switching gears because I like to
Real
ask.
quick, just one last little piece for that because I think
Of
this will
course,
be mind
yeah,
blowing.
yeah.
So the 4.7 million times,
Hmm.
so $1 financial calculator, 520 weeks. That's weekly for a decade. If you improve by 3% per week for a decade,
Hmm.
guess what the number is if you cut it in half, meaning you do every other week?
Every other week, like 2 million.
2,444.
Really? That's
2,444. That's the difference between 3% per week versus
mhm.
3% every other week. And
It's
by the way, for anyone with a credit card, daily compounding, whoa. Right? Cut those things up ASAP.
Yeah. Okay, switching gears. Like you had mentioned that you started a business, you had a car accident, you started your first business, the LLC. When you went to your family, what was your reaction for you saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this"?
Oh, terrible. Yeah, yeah, terrible. You're a podcaster now. You're a bodybuilder now. I mean, I got made fun of. I got made fun of for years. All my old friends
Hmm.
and uh, I some of my friends just were terrible friends. In hindsight, I just didn't know.
Hmm.
You seen the movie Good Will Hunting?
Yes.
All right. So abandonment challenges, tough childhood,
Hmm.
surrounded himself with people that maybe weren't what's best for him because he didn't want to be abandoned.
Hmm.
Sort of genius guy.
Hmm.
That resonates deeply. I remember I had the duck pond scene from Good Will Hunting on my MySpace when I was 17 years old. Now, in
Huh.
hindsight, I know why. But I did that. I was so afraid. It was unconsciously after I lost my birth father's side of the family, the McCorkles, the Lazaroses, and then the Higgins family.
Hmm.
I kind of realized, okay, I just unconsciously decided to do anything to keep my friends and family unconsciously. So I became this. On one hand, it was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. On
Hmm.
the other hand, it was don't get abandoned. So I became this sort of social coward chameleon who would fit in with everybody, even though I was actually, very different. And Good Will Hunting, I think, is a good metaphor for that.
Awesome.
And so, anyways, to I forget what the original question was.
Like the reaction of your family.
Yeah, and so I came from a very small-minded place.
Mm-hmm.
I playfully refer to it as the Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
Good
And there's
song.
two ways to look at this. Either I'm super super achievement oriented,
Mm-hmm.
or they're super 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 not. So you can look at it both. I think it's both. It's probably
Mm-hmm.
both. But ultimately, what happens when you think beyond your own lifetime is most people are only thinking about today. And when you're this esoteric semi-math genius, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance weirdo, like even when you said Malcolm Gladwell is brighter, I actually
Mm-hmm.
disagree. Right.
All
But
good. All good.
yeah, but also, uh, I kind of hide that because it makes me feel like I don't belong. So my therapist Carol said this. She said, "You're never going to fully belong because you're in the 0.05 percentile of intelligence. You
Mm-hmm.
check so many of the boxes, right? And you can read multiple intelligences. You can read a book called The Hidden Habits of Genius, and
Mm-hmm.
essentially there's certain character traits. Anyone who's out there who feels gifted,
Mm-hmm.
that's all I'm saying. You're not allowed to say that about yourself, by the way. I'm the only one who does it. And the only reason I do it is because I think it's important for people to realize that if you feel wildly alone like I did, you might actually be alone intellectually, cognitively, right?
Okay.
I mean, I was proving textbooks wrong when I was 14 years old. I built my first computer at 12. I didn't feel any sense of belonging until after I went to college with people of really high, IQ. And so I just, for anyone out there who doesn't understand why they don't fit in anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you statistically don't.
So that brings up a question, just a little off track entirely. Like, being a high level intelligence person, how many books do you read a year?
So I didn't read enough before 26. After 26, I would say at least 150, maybe two, maybe
200 books
200.
a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read every single day. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what genres do you generally jump into?
All self-help, self-improvement, peak performance, engineering, books like Algorithms to Live By,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all the Malcolm Gladwell books, all of it is self-improvement and or tech, pretty
Okay.
much. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you just absorb those books, you just enjoy them, and you learn from them, grow from them, and make them more part of your essence. In essence.
I so all these books behind me, for example, and then
Hmm.
these ones, I repeat books. So when you say 200 books a year, I wouldn't say 200 new books a year,
Okay.
but I never don't listen to a book at least once a day.
So you listen to books and read books, like hard copy
Correct.
page books, and then
Mhm.
also like audiobooks.
Yeah, so I do audios throughout the day. I
Hmm.
read books before bed, and then I
Hmm.
have a hard copy book. We have a book club called the Next Level Book Club.
Hmm.
I've been doing it for 4 years, and we're on our 19th book now. We're actually reading The Art of Thinking Clearly. You
Hmm.
ever? Yeah, okay. That. So we're reading that book in book club, and every week we get together Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern
Just
Standard Time. But
talk about it,
ultimately,
like by
yeah.
chapter or by idea.
So it depends. So this one is 100 chapters, so we're doing 5 chapters per session,
Okay.
and that'll be 20 weeks because we do it weekly. So it'll be 20 weeks until the end of the book.
Gotcha.
And it's 5 of the cognitive biases per week, essentially, is what that one's broken down into. But all of them are self improvement books for book club
Mm-hmm.
because that's sort of on brand. But then there's other books like Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. I've read that book. I'm not even joking. I would listen to it before bed every night. I still do, not every night, but most nights because it's a perspective reset. I think my life's hard.
Mm-hmm.
You ever read the book?
I've not read it entirely. No, I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no
So
worries. So,
bits and pieces.
I mean, Viktor Frankl's an absolute genius. And he's a psychiatrist during World War II in a concentration camp, and he reflects on, I mean, it's just magnificent. It's just
Mhm.
magnificent. And so I think my life's hard. Oh, it's so 18-person team and 27 clients, and I'm so overwhelmed. No, no, no. My life's not hard. My life is good hard. His
Yeah.
life is actually hard in the book. And so for me, it's a perspective reset. Same with history books. I also
Hmm.
love philosophy, adore
Okay.
philosophy. Uh, but ultimately, it's mostly peak performance, neuroscience, self improvement, and then some AI stuff.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I wanted to jump off a little track there because you brought it up, and I was like, well, we'll go down the rabbit hole for a
Nice.
second. So okay, so you're after you had your LLC, what was the next evolution for your business as an entrepreneur? Did you jump right into next level, or was it something in between there?
So Alan Lazarus LLC
Hmm.
was the start. And then I realized that wasn't going to work through massive pain and failure. And then I started a little podcast called Conversations Change Lives. And it
Okay.
was very similar to this in the sense of, okay, when I was younger, I was told, okay, you're really good at math.
Hmm.
True. Uh, Engineers make a lot of money. You should be an engineer. Engineers are good at math.
Hmm.
And so my two trajectories were going to be lawyer, politician, president, or engineer, MBA, CEO, like my hero, Steve Jobs. I used to argue who was smarter, Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. I used to think Bill Gates. Now I think Steve Jobs. Doesn't matter. The point is
That's
I
an
went the
argument we can have
engineer.
for another day. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I went the other. Well, it turns out one of them understood people, the other one understood techies. But anyways, they both understood both. But whatever. So the point is, though, is people with really high IQs, by the way, don't understand other people that well.
Hmm.
Most tools are built by engineers for engineers.
Yeah.
Right? I've been on global product marketing teams and robotics companies. They don't understand why, like human engineers don't understand human beings because there's four modalities of thinking, and the
Hmm.
one that engineers have is mathematics.
Hmm.
If you don't think in mathematics, you don't understand. No one
World is
thinks in
chaos. Yeah.
mathematics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, what, 1% of the population maybe has that as their first modality of thinking?
Hmm.
And that they're the ones building everything?
Yeah.
Whoa. Right? So, in business, you need three main skills. You need metric, system structure, all that, design. And then you need products and services innovation. And then you need people. If you engineers suck at that third one, myself included. I mean, Kevin luckily is good at people. That's why he's the chief sales officer, right? And I thought I was good with people. Oh my goodness, am I atrocious? We would go give the same speech. Everyone would love Kev. And no one would like my speech. And I remember thinking my
It's
speech is
like I
better
gave
than
the same
his.
thing.
Yeah,
What's going
no, not
on?
the same thing. Way better, right? I thought, again, when it comes to thinking differently and thinking intellectually and thinking
Yeah.
intelligently, mine was better, but no one liked me, it turns out. So, and now I realize that's an engineer thing. Engineers
Hmm.
have high self belief, low self worth because they don't get along with humans. And that's why we say humans, by the way.
Yeah, but when they talk to other engineers, engineer-minded people, it's like a whole different ball game. And people are like, "Well, I'm bored of this conversation." And then an engineer is like, "No, I could sit here all day. We could
All
just keep
day.
going."
Oh, it's the best. That's what
Yeah.
college was for me. We would drink and talk.
Yeah.
And we would philosophize about the
Hmm.
future of technology and all that stuff. And then I met Kev, and he lived a whole different blue collar life, so we got to learn each other, and so we
Hmm.
became well rounded. So I'm so grateful. But back to the original thing, I started a podcast called Conversations Change Lives, where
Yep.
I would interview an engineer and ask them like, "What is your life actually like?" Because
Hmm.
I thought it was going to be great, and then I found out it sucked. Right? And so let me interview a nurse and talk about what you thought it would be like versus what it was really like,
Yeah.
and good, bad, ugly, so
Hmm.
that kids can actually make a choice
Hmm.
based on real life, not based on their parent, doctor, lawyer, engineer failure, right, from their
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was Conversation Changed Lives. Kevin was my first guest.
Hmm.
He had a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast, and I was his first guest.
Gotcha.
And then we teamed up, had the worst named podcast in history. The Hyperconscious Podcast meets Conversations Change Lives podcast. And we did that for like 20 weeks. And then we went all in on Hyperconscious, change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live.
Hmm.
And then we rebranded, I think episode of 500 or so, we rebranded to what's now known as Next Level University.
Hmm.
Almost 1,900 episodes, 1% improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free, health, wealth, life, and love, holistic self-improvement.
Gotcha.
And that's built on what I told you earlier about the 4.7 million thing. If you understood, like Kevin and I, if we had Next Level University, just one episode a day, 20 to 40 minutes, just one a day. Can you
Hmm.
imagine how smart you get?
Oh yeah, just the
Oh,
conversations. Like I'm in front of like four screens most of the day, and like I have two offices, so I go from four screens to four screens, and
nice.
like having a chance to take 2 hours or so, and sometimes a more, a little bit less, and just talk to someone increases
Your awareness.
or just everything. Like, because if you talk to someone that's like an expert in something, you can really deep dive if they'll allow you to, and be like, okay, let's really unpack Next Level University piece by piece, part by part, take apart the engine and see how this thing really works.
I would love to.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we can jump right into that. And like my takeaway is it's great because I got the socialization, but then it's also like Joe Rogan is a great example of this. He's done
Yeah.
so many episodes, and he's an expert in so many fields because he's talking to people all over the spectrum. It's not like business only. He's talking to a guy that like thinks aliens or exist and like we came from aliens and this, that, and the other. Uh, but he can go toe to toe now on a lot of different subjects because he has all these conversations.
He
And it
has a
sounds
lot
like,
of dots to connect. He has so many dots that
yeah.
he has probably made so many amazing connections in between, interdisciplinary connections.
Hmm.
And so he probably has such a deep understanding of the human condition just through the compound effect of conversations with all different people from all different industries. As a coach, I learn more from my clients
Hmm.
than they do from me because I have all different industries, all different cultures, all different countries,
Hmm.
all different ethnicities from all over the world. I'm synthesizing so much information that I'm starting to really understand how the whole world works. Now,
Hmm.
I know nothing compared to what there is to know.
Hmm.
However, statistically, I know that I know a lot more than I used to and a lot more than people who don't have that as their career.
No, no, but I mean, right there, I think you said something that's so powerful. I give you a lot of credit for is like I think I knowing nothing um, is a level of humbleness that is not really seen by a lot of business owners. They all want to be like all knowing, all expertise. Like I kind of have that same logic, unfortunately or fortunately, depending upon who you talk to, where like there's so much I don't know in reference to like different elements of like even my own business. Like you go down a rabbit hole and you hit a point where you're like, okay, at a wall, and you probably have that in your business too. It's like, okay, well now I need to figure this out. Like I don't know this. I need to find the right person that could do this, or I need to take time and Jenga it out to actually make it work.
There's way more that we don't know than we do know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a duality because I always use, and again, computer engineer thing, right? So the way I think of it is the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2007, the very first iPhone came out, and it
Yes.
was a revolutionary breakthrough product. I was a senior in high school. I remember it. And now this is the iPhone 14. I think they have the 16 out now.
But I just
But
like to preface this. I apologize to you because
you're an
there are some
Android man.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. It is what it is. It is what it is. But the point is, the point is, and I'm a PC man, so it's weird that I'm both.
Yeah.
But ultimately, uh, the iPhone 16
Mm-hmm.
compared to the very first iPhone,
Oh, night and day.
the very first revolutionary, what was once revolutionary, is
Yeah.
garbage now.
Yes.
Absolute. I mean, did it even have internet? Barely. The
No.
the touchscreen was garbage, right? So
Yeah. I
the
remember when the
compound
first
effect.
mouse was like a square. It was ridiculous.
I know. I remember the first Macs too. It's.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the deal, right? So human beings, we see that with technology.
Mm-hmm.
We see we can compare an iPhone 16 to the very first iPhone and go, whoa, this isn't even close. 4.7 million times better or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't do that with ourselves. And so to your point regarding there, compared to what there is to know,
Mm-hmm.
which is infinite, I know nothing. Compared to what I knew when I was 10, I'm brilliant. It's very hard to hold that duality.
No, no, it is true. It's true. Yeah. Like now that brings up a question because you made the change from peak performance to the next level university. What was a decision mindset of like saying, hey, we have to change this now?
Uh, we have a mentor named Evan Carmichael. He does the top tens on YouTube, top
Mhm.
10, mindsets for success or whatever. And he was our mentor at the time. We actually produce his podcast now, which is cool. But anyways, he said your name is garbage, and we would coach with him, and he was right. I mean, ultimately, hyper conscious. No one knows what it means.
Yeah.
And it means acutely aware.
Yeah.
Change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. So we actually lost a lot of momentum when we rebranded. So be careful of a rebrand.
Hmm.
You gotta do a good cost value analysis before you do that. But next level university, we used to say next level. Ooh, that's so next level. That person's so next level. So we thought about that. He said, you guys are the next level guys. We're like, oh. And then next level university. It's a place where you go to
Hmm.
learn how to reach your potential. And your potential is a mountain that gets higher as you climb it. It's an infinite game. And I'm Alan version 3.6 on November 17th. My birthday's this Sunday, I think.
Hmm.
And Alan version 3.6 is going to be smarter, stronger, better, more virtuous, more capable, more aware than Alan version 3.5, and way more than Alan version 3.4, and way more than Alan version 1.4. So
Hmm.
we all are exponentially, hopefully, improving ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And so Next Level University, it's a place where you go to learn how to reach your potential
Mm-hmm.
holistically, because I didn't want to be wealthy and not in love. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to be healthy and in love but not wealthy. I wanted to be successful
Balance.
in
Yeah.
multiple areas. And
Yes.
I had a lot of mentors who were, 30 pounds overweight and they're multimillionaires, but they're not happy and they're divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't want to end up like that. And everyone is really, really, and this is what you've noticed too, interviewing people, everyone's really good in one area.
Yeah.
There's no one who's like really good at a lot of things. Almost no one. And I know why. It's really hard. If you look at the math, let's say
Mm-hmm.
you're top 1% in health, top 1% in wealth, top 1% in love, and top 1% in life,
Mm-hmm.
call it
Yeah.
life, love, health, and wealth. You're what's 1 over 100 to the fourth power? I think it's like 1 in a billion. I think you're
Mm-hmm.
1 in a billion if you actually do that. I'd have to do the math.
So
I
I
know it's 1
got
in
a
a million
question for you.
if you're 1 in 100 in health, wealth, and love. It's 1 in a million.
I've had a couple people come on my podcast recently that have jumped from one industry entirely and jumped into a different industry, and they were like expounding their success on it. Like, what are your thoughts on jumping like from one industry to another? Because you have a business that you mentioned, yeah, hey, we have this, we have that going, we have this going, we have that going, but to go from something so radical from one thing to another, like what's your opinion on that?
Well, on the one hand, it's a terrible idea. On the other hand, it's the best idea ever. Let me explain. On
Okay.
the one hand, where it's a terrible idea, it's a terrible idea because the world isn't going to know you for much more than one thing,
Hmm.
unfortunately, right? So, like, I always say Tesla should not sell energy drinks, Red Bull should not sell cars.
Hmm.
You're branded as a certain thing, whether you like it or not. That's why I say I'm an engineer. Not only does it give me permission to actually be honest with everybody
Hmm.
about my mathematical understanding, but it also is, hey, if you want to engineer your success by design, that's the name of the interesting by design. Everything's designed. I don't wake up in the morning like, oh, what do I want to do today? Like everything is by design.
Hmm.
And I know that's excessive for some people, but makes perfect sense for others. So on one hand, it's a terrible idea because you're basically taking all of your accumulated compounded branding
Hmm.
and shifting it into a different area where no one knows you. Trust me, I went to LA to start working in show business. I ended up with an interview at SpaceX. Why? Tech.
Yeah.
Tech. I had to start from the ground. So for 12 years, right? 4 years of middle school, 4 years of high school, 4 years of college, master's degree. You're looking at all this education in tech. I'm
Hmm.
a computer engineer from one of the best engineering colleges on the planet. Every tech company knows WPI. Everyone.
Hmm.
Not a single person in show business had any idea that that school existed. You're a computer engineer. What the hell are you doing here?
Hmm.
Oh, this isn't going to work. This is a terrible idea. I ended up going home. That's when the corporate started and all this stuff. Here's my point.
Hmm.
I ended up canceling that, not doing that SpaceX interview, which I kind of regret. But that was family stuff, mom, sister, girlfriend from home, Courtney. I had to go home, personal reasons. But
Hmm.
anyways, so on one hand, it's a terrible idea. On the other hand, it's a great idea. Here's why: if you're not passionate, you're never gonna win anyway. If I adore what I do and you don't, and you're competing with me,
It doesn't matter.
it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I'm gonna win 10 times out of 10 in a 10-year period. You can't sustain misery. And
That's fair.
so,
I like that. That's very fair. Yeah.
because the compound effect doesn't work
Hmm.
unless you're consistent, and you will never be consistent doing something you hate. You just won't. Human beings will, and Steve Jobs used to say this. He said, if you
Hmm.
don't love it, you're gonna give up because you're sane.
Hmm.
Only an insane person does something they hate for 15 years. And all of us have done things where it was more push than pull. I have a lot of pull and I have to push myself to stay in the pull. But
Hmm.
I'm telling you, when I compete with people who are all push, there's no question. You're not going to last.
Interesting. Interesting. So, thank you. That's a good perspective on that. Okay. So moving forward. So we're into next level university now, and you start opening multiple businesses under that brand, I'm assuming. Is
Hmm.
that correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't
What
know how you
businesses
knew that,
are
but you did your research, or you just guessed.
a little bit both?
Nice, nice.
What businesses have you started under that brand? Could you give me a listing of them?
Yeah, so we have something called listeners, longers, and business owners at this stage. Now, NLU
Hmm.
is next level version of yourself, become the best version of yourself. So that's self improvement at its core. Holistic self improvement is the core of the company.
Hmm.
However, we had to make money, and no one pays for self improvement. Not
Hmm.
no one, but most people don't. I always say we're selling kale outside a candy store. Brutal,
Okay.
right? You don't want to look in the mirror at all your inadequacies. Nobody does. So we're selling kale, even though it's good for you, nobody wants it.
Hmm.
And so what we had to find a way to build a business underneath the brand. And so listeners, longers, business owners. Listeners are people who want to learn from us, who actually do love self improvement.
Hmm.
Longers are people who want to build their own podcasts and build their own communities globally. Business owners are people who have skin in the game, who have to generate revenue.
Hmm.
Some listeners become longers, become business owners. So some podcasters want to start a business. Some business owners need a podcast
Hmm.
to grow their brand. So we have Next Level University, which is for listeners. We
Hmm.
have Podcast Growth University, which is for podcasters, longers, and then
Hmm.
I'm starting Business Growth University. So become the best business owner you can be, become the best podcaster you can be, become the best version of yourself. And that's the triad.
Hmm.
And that's what the whole company's built on. Now, we have other things that feed that book
Hmm.
club, monthly meetup every month. Um, we have a Dreamliner journal that helps you reverse engineer your dreams every morning
Interesting.
to make sure it says achieve your dreams 90 days at a time is sort of the little, but the whole frame of NLU is level up yourself, level up your podcast, level up your business.
Hmm.
We have a podcast company, production company called Next Level Podcast Solutions.
Hmm.
And between group coaching and NLPS is what we call it, I currently work directly slash indirectly with 61 podcasters.
Interesting.
And then I have business coaching, which I have 27 people on my roster as of last week. Might be about to be 26. One of my clients I think is leaving. So 26 business owners,
That's
all
honest.
different walks of life. What'd
Yeah,
you say?
that's honest.
Yeah. Gotta be always. So 26.
Hmm.
Uh, that's on my roster currently, but I've coached hundreds over the years. People have come and gone. All different industries, all different backgrounds, all different companies. Some, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel. Some, I've been in business for decades. I'm already a multimillionaire.
Hmm.
All of them want to grow and scale and turn their passion into purpose, into profit. And a lot of this is fluffy, feel good, high level explanations. So if
Hmm.
you want to dig into any of that, I'm happy to. But ultimately, what it comes down to is the top of the business model. It's like a funnel. The top of the business model is free value that
Hmm.
builds a relationship based on holistic self improvement. And then the bottom is the business. And it's supposed to be, one to scale, one to several, one to one. And the
Hmm.
one to one, so the one to scale is high volume free,
Yeah, of course.
high volume, low price. Then you have the middle of the business model, which is medium volume, medium price. Group
What's the
coaching is
median price for
modest.
you? Just at a.
Oh, I mean, $97 a month.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, very, very modest.
Yeah.
Uh, a group coaching program, we actually did the math.
Hmm.
We've done 16 groups. Our 16th group graduates at the end of the year. We do them every quarter.
Okay.
We did the math. It's 12 sessions, 6 with Kevin and I, and then we have Amy Lenius. She's the assistant coach. We did the math. With the discount code, it comes to $25 a session.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so that's medium price, medium volume.
Hmm.
And then the bottom of the business model is high price, low volume.
So it's like
And
you
that's
and
the
one
one-on-one.
person. Yeah.
Yep, that's the
Okay.
one-on-one.
And
Like you
where
get
where is that?
Kev, you get me.
Where's that price point at?
My business coaching.
Yeah, the one-on-one one.
The it starts at $147 an hour
Okay.
per session.
All right, that's cool.
I've been berated by people for that low price point. Like my mentors, my business coaches, they're like, "Oh my, I can't even believe." Listen, I'm the one with 26 clients, and by the way, I want to help people.
Hmm.
And the way I see it, I do weekly, I do bi-weekly, I do monthly, and I do twice a week for a couple crazies.
Hmm.
And we're rocking and rolling. And I'm gonna raise my prices at some point, but honestly, right now I've still got capacity, and I adore this. And
Hmm.
these are members of our community, and it's more than just the money for me. So if
I understand.
anyone's out there and they want a business coach, you will not find a business coach for less money than that. You will not. I've never seen it before in my life. I never will see it. I am kind of out of my mind with it.
So this amount of time you're giving to the individuals for 147 an hour, like how many hours would you say you're doing in the course of a month with someone?
So I'm averaging right now. So the only 3 things that I do now
Hmm.
In That sounds pretentious. At the beginning, I had to do everything. Now I
I
have an 18
understand. No,
person
you're
team.
grown. I
Yeah.
mean, like it's like yeah. I'm a business owner. I get it. You
Yeah,
go,
you get
yeah.
it. I have to make sure that I say that though, because for the early entrepreneurs, if you're starting a business to get to try to, have more free time, you're out of your mind. Don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy.
It's insane. Yeah. There is no 4 hour work week. That's a marketing title. Okay. So the three things that I do, I have something called a G3 target. I call it your genius zone. And
Hmm.
I have one to scale, one to several, one to one. So this is my personal one. And the idea is stay focused, stay focused, stay focused, stay on target. And that's
Yeah.
actually why I'm here right now. G3, so the top of this little sort of funnel
Hmm.
is podcasting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one to scale. That's what this is right now.
Hmm.
Trainings, I do trainings and workshops. Those are one to several. Group coaching would be a good example of that. We have 11 people in group 16. It's supposed to be 10. We let one in at the end.
Hmm.
So one to several. And then I have one to one. And if I do them each well, then I'm good to go. So to answer your original question, how many coaching sessions? Right now I have this tracked. I'm a metrics guy, engineer.
Yeah.
My average is 54 per week, podcasts, trainings, and coaching as of right now,
Now, you're
which is
saying
insane.
you
That's
do
the highest I've ever done.
12-week program, you multiple, so you have 12 and 12 inside of that program. For the individuals, how many are you doing with the individuals per week? Like just to remove out some of the other ones. I'm just kind of curious how to say
I
any.
have 26. I actually don't have that number because I do my G3 target metric all together.
Gotcha.
So I track everything in Google Sheets,
Hmm.
and my G3 includes podcasts, trainings, and coaching sessions because those are the only things I allow on my calendar. So I don't actually
Hmm.
have a coaching specific metric for you.
Gotcha.
But if I had to guess, my goal is to get that number up.
Of
I'd say
course.
at
Yeah.
least 20 a week,
20
at
a week.
least.
So
Yeah.
you're doing 21-hour sessions a week?
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. That's really good. Um,
Thank you.
so in reference to those sessions, do you have like a templated framework that you're taking people down, or is it like more of a crisis management conversation from time to time?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you start with? Do you start with a templated session, do a discovery session with them, and then get them down the road of like, here we are, and lay that out for
100%.
me?
Yeah. So, okay. So the first thing that we do is a free 30-minute business breakthrough session.
Okay.
And really what that is tell me where you started, why you started, where you
Hmm.
are now, where you want to go. High level. And then I just kind of add as much value as possible. And then I send a follow-up email saying, hey, if you ever want a coaching session, paid, let me know. Here's my rates. Here's how it works. Pay as you play, no long-term contract. I don't want to work with anyone who doesn't want to work with me, that kind of thing. And I have
Of course,
a
yeah.
roster. Yeah. Okay. So the system that I do, goals. So
Hmm.
someone comes to me, tells me their goals,
Yep.
top 3 goals. Okay,
You're
for
just
the
not
year,
taking a gazillion goals. You're like, give me your biggest three. Yeah.
biggest three, and that's a whole process.
Hmm.
And then we figure out what metrics we need to track in order
Hmm.
to achieve those goals. So how I took you through my G3 target.
Yep.
For me, there should be one metric for podcasting, one
Hmm.
metric for training, one metric for coaching. As the CEO, my metric is gross revenue,
Hmm.
cash on hand, and then G3, which is podcasts, trainings, and coaching. That's my 3 main metrics.
Hmm.
And this changes for each individual, but it's goals, metrics, habits, skills, identity. Okay, I'll go through one by one. So
Hmm.
goals, top 3 goals, not 50 goals, top 3 for the year, and then we break it down into each quarter.
Hmm.
So Q4 we have 51 days left. You got to make every day count.
Hmm.
Where are you? You got to benchmark and measure up against.
Yeah.
Okay, so 51 days. If you and I were to coach, it'd be okay. What are your top 3 goals by the end of the year? You want to achieve this, and they have to be measurable.
Hmm.
Okay. What are the metrics that you're going to track every day to make sure you're benchmarking against that?
Interesting. Okay.
What are the habits that lead to the success of that?
So you're interesting. So you're basically saying you're looking not only at the metrics, you're looking at the habits, and you're helping people improve their habits
Yep.
in their business or in their life or both.
So picture it like a tree. So you have a goal at the top, then you
Hmm.
have the 3 metrics,
Hmm.
then you have 3 habits under each of those metrics. If you really wanted to do a reverse engineering tree,
Hmm.
that's kind of how you do it. Now, because it's health, wealth, and love, and it's holistic coaching,
Yeah.
even though I'm a business coach, I still help you stay dialed in fitness, make sure you're getting good sleep, whatever the bottleneck is.
Hmm.
And then the last one is skills. So for mine, my most important skill is effective communication.
Okay.
Kevin told me, dude, no one understands what the hell you're talking about. And I would say, okay, why? And I keep learning from him why no one gets what I'm saying. The thing
Hmm.
I did earlier, the
Hmm.
4.7 million with the financial calculator and all that, I used to lose people. He's like, dude, no one's taken,
No one's
differential
embracing. Yeah.
equations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, I've never even met an engineer. And I'm going, what? My whole world has been engineers. I can't imagine not knowing an engineer, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Obviously, you feel that way as well. But he's like, dude, no one cares. Oh, okay. So I really have to make math fun for
Hmm.
people because if you don't know your numbers, I'm not trying to be unkind. I'm an engineer. If you don't know your numbers, you're screwed in business.
That's why most businesses fail in the first 5 years because they're not keeping a handle on their numbers.
You need to know your numbers.
Yeah.
And that's what I do for a living. I have everyone's metrics and habits tracked. Everyone,
Hmm.
every team member, myself, my girlfriend, every client has a peak performance tracker where all of this is tracked.
Does
Okay,
she
so
approve? Like, go your girlfriend? Does she like? How does she feel about like, hey, honey, I want to put you on this tracker?
yeah, so she's actually as nuts as I am, so she loves it.
Oh, okay.
She has her own version of it. I swear to you, we have metrics on our whiteboard downstairs.
I
Every
believe it.
single day we cash out and like here's where we're at.
Interesting. So you guys are like totally kumbayaing, like as it were. Okay, continue.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
to get
yeah.
off
So we're
topic
but
too much. Yeah.
she has bigger goals and dreams than anyone I've ever met. And so here's the truth too. If you have big goals and dreams, you have no
Hmm.
choice. You have to raise the bar and you have to track. Like
Yeah.
most people wake up and they're like, "Oh, what do I feel like doing today?" If you have a dream to be the best in your industry, you can't do that. You can't just wing it, right? You're not
Mhm.
going to wing your way to the top. No Olympic athlete doesn't have everything tracked. And so again, I know I'm nuts, but that's just a little side tangent. So skills, effective communication is my most important skill. But what we would do is we would say, okay, here's your goal, here's your metrics, here's your habits. Great, let's track it. What skills don't you have? Most people are awful at sales.
Hmm.
They have no idea how to sell.
Yeah.
I'm not great at it. I would say I'm decent. There's 5 steps to sales. It's a simple. I have something called a sales star,
Yeah.
and the first one's get exposure. The second one is make a connection. The third one is meaningful conversation. The fourth one is offer a compelling solution, and then the fifth one is follow up.
Hmm.
And most people don't have a prospecting system or a CRM. Most
Or
people
they're
don't
just
even know what
talking
a
to the
C-
wrong people. They're going to places where there's no actual ability to close. They're like, great, I just talked to someone of I don't want to give a core example, but they're just in the wrong pond.
100%. You
Yeah.
can't fish in the wrong pond with the wrong bait.
Yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
Agreed. So, and so that's sales would be one example of a skill. So everyone has a most important habit, a
Hmm.
most important metric, a most important goal that those habits and metrics lead to, a most important skill that they're going to develop, and then everything after that is identity.
Gotcha.
And usually that's courage. Like you just don't have the so for me, I'm a coward when it comes to social. I'm a social coward. So behind the scenes, I think like
You're more
everything.
introverted in nature, where you're like, I wouldn't say cowardice, but like you would prefer to be like, hey, I'd rather chill out, read a book, and stand in the corner and let my business partner run out there and make the sale, or like have someone else. If I'm with my wife, I want to just sort of chill with her, and if she separates from me, I'm kind of upset because she was my like person at this party. Is that a
Well,
good representation of who you are?
I would say I was I think we all have nature and nurture.
Hmm. Yeah.
Nature is introverted. Nurture is all conditioned to be extroverted. Because my mom and stepdad ran amok, I was forced to,
Be
and I
extrovert.
was afraid to be abandoned. So I tried to create as many relationships as I could unconsciously. So
Gotcha.
I'm really good at creating relationships for an engineer.
Hmm.
But if it was up to me, I would be in spreadsheets all day. I wouldn't.
Yeah, so like deep down, like if like nothing else mattered, you would just like it was just a doesn't matter type of party. You would just show up and be like, or I might not want to show up because it doesn't really matter.
I wouldn't want to show up. Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm honest with myself, I don't want to go to barbecues. I don't want small talk. I like this. This is
Yeah.
interesting to me. But most of the stuff people talk about is exhausting for me. I can't talk about like I
That,
remember I was at Thanksgiving once and someone was talking about, "Oh, did you guys see Cher's hair at the Thanksgiving parade? This was last year." And I remember thinking like I want to throw my head through a wall. I can't. I can't talk about Cher's hair. Is that in your circle of concern? I can't have Cher's hair in my circle of concern, right? I'm not even care my own
I mean,
hair,
that
right?
would be an interesting person for my podcast because, like, I would dissect them more than
Yeah,
they would be
yeah,
aware of.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
why
yeah,
is Cher's hair
yeah.
your most important thing in your mind?
Yeah, why is that your focal point? Because
Yeah.
ultimately that's a useless use of your consciousness from my perspective. But I'm also the weirdo, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
I get it.
So, you going back to you have the habits. You help people get down the tree, as you call it, and you have the habits. What's below the habits?
Identity.
Identity. So,
In other words, this is the quote that I use is anyone can teach you how to lose weight, eat less, exercise more.
yeah,
Almost no one can get you to do it.
100%. It has to be. You have to be motivated to do it, and it's going to happen. So,
That
you help motivate people on the identity level and get them to say, "Yes, I'm going to stop. I'm going to cut out all the distractions, and I'm just going to go."
yeah, that's a constant process. So I have something called a commitment device. So I just did it with my client Andrew, and I said, "Dude, you haven't been posting on Instagram. You're a
Mhm.
coach. This is your main platform. You just aren't doing it. I have all the data. You're crushing everything else. What's the deal?" He's a
Mhm.
social coward like me. He's afraid to put himself out there. He's afraid to be judged. We all
Mhm.
are. I said, okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to charge you double for this session, and then it's going to pay for your next session if you post every day. Guess it always works. Human
So,
beings will do more not to lose than they will to gain.
do you help them with the content creation for the posting, or do they
Yeah.
have that innately?
Well, we think it's a content creation issue when in reality it's just a fear of judgment. Like, post something, post crap. But you're
So,
afraid to post crap. Most people are more afraid to be seen as a failure than to actually be a failure.
do you actually refine like the crap they're posting and help them make it more
Oh, of
effective?
course. Yeah, yeah. But
Good.
you only do that once you're doing it, though.
So once you're
I
on the
mean,
treadmill, then you're sort of
yeah. You're
let's.
not going to improve a process you're not doing.
So how long does it take for you to get someone that's putting themselves out there or getting their identity out there to see that success moment where they're saying like, man, I just got my first big hit. And like it's not like $100 hit, it's a $10,000 hit or $1,000 hit. What when is
It
that?
varies. I had one client who made $450,000 in a single week,
In 1 week of coaching
which
with
made
you.
my price point. Kevin was like, "Dude, I think we got to raise your prices," because when I met that person, he couldn't even stop smoking weed. Like, I don't want to. Again, I'm
No,
always
no.
trying not to come off as pretentious, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it depends on the person, and it
Hmm.
depends on where they're at in the compound effect. So if you've been podcasting for 7 years, I'm going to be able to get you results way quicker than someone who just started.
Hmm.
By a couple tweaks, it'll make a bigger mathematical difference.
Gotcha.
But I would say there's little iterative moments along the way, and the
Hmm.
part we haven't talked about yet, which is really my actual. Kevin calls me the goal engineer, and my girlfriend Emilia said, "Nope, you're the fulfillment engineer," and she's right. I focus on making sure they're fulfilled, and fulfillment is alignment with, like, if your goals don't align with your calling and your
Hmm.
purpose, you're not going to be fulfilled.
Hmm.
So it's this sort of Venn diagram. This is the simplest I can possibly make it. It's kind of like Ikigai, but so the first circle in the Venn diagram is what is meaningful work for you, and underline the word work, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so podcasting is meaningful work for me, assuming it's a good conversation. If we were talking about Cher's hair, I'd be out.
Really?
Okay.
You don't want to stick around? Come on.
No, no, no. I appreciate you, man. No, I can't. I can't. I'm not going to waste my consciousness, right? It's my limited resource. So, what's meaningful work for you?
Yeah.
And underline the word work. That's the first circle. Second circle. What are you ridiculously good at?
Hmm.
And I'm talking statistically. I don't
Hmm.
mean your mom thinks you're good. I mean you line up 100 people in a room and you're top 10 every time.
Knock them down, line them up, knock
No.
them down. Yeah,
Yeah,
gotcha.
exactly.
Yep, yep.
Okay, and the last one is what will the economy pay you for? That it's really hard to align the first two with the third one. The economy doesn't pay for meaningful stuff a lot of the time.
Hmm.
I love self-improvement. The economy doesn't pay for self-improvement. It does pay for business coaching.
Hmm.
So I had to adapt and evolve my brand to be a business coach, even though before I was a peak performance coach, I was a mindset coach, I was a fitness coach, I was a life coach, I was a business consultant. So I had to go through this process to realize, okay, no one cares. Everyone feels and identifies I need a business coach. No one identifies as needing a self-improvement coach. In that case, they just go to therapy, right?
Yeah.
So I had to kind of learn through massive pain, suffering, and failure what doesn't work. Even though what I'm really doing with every business owner is what? Self-improvement.
Yeah.
the identity work. Yeah.
So, spinning back a little bit because you do 1,500 plus episodes. At what point in time did you have the evolution? Was it the day where you said we're going to be next level university? Now we're going to just start talking about business coaching, or was that even further down the track where you sort of said, okay, we made the brand change, but now we're going to have the conversation topic change on our channel to represent that? Was that an evolution, or was that like immediate as quick as a brand change?
It was an evolution.
Okay. How long
Everything,
was the evolution?
everything. Uh, what I just took you through of like I started as a fitness coach, then I was a
Yeah, yeah.
mindset coach, then a peak. I mean, from so I've been mentoring for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
coaching for 8.
Okay.
So
And
it took 8 years. I started business coaching, like that label,
mm-hmm.
because if you have the wrong label, people have the wrong understanding.
Of
So you
course,
have
yeah.
to you have to put the right label. And unfortunately, your understanding of the label is different than the market's understanding of the label. So that's a whole
Mm-hmm.
other thing. But
Yeah, you don't want to shoot
uh,
to market some random esoteric label. Yeah, it doesn't work.
well, so if I say therapist, you think one thing. If I say engineer, you think another thing. If I say business coach, you think another thing. So what
Mm-hmm.
about an engineer plus a business coach plus someone who's obsessed with self improvement? That's really sort of what I actually am. But how do you
No one can wrap their head around it. Their heads just
exactly
explode.
until after they've experienced it, which is
Yeah.
why you should start for free and then build, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But ultimately, it took 8 years. I would say 7 years because I've been business coach for at least a year and a half now.
Okay. So last year and a half of this journey, you just been hardcore leaning in entirely to the business coach
Mm-hmm.
mantra. And did you have a hockey stick growth at that point, or when did you have your hockey stick growth by switching gears?
Hockey stick growth for us was 2021, 2022, 2023 in terms of the podcast.
Okay.
In the beginning, when we first started, we had 4 listens per day. I mean, we did 1,054 listens in the entire first year. We do more than that per day now.
Gotcha.
But that was just, and again, we have a lot of episodes, right? So it's not necessarily listeners. It's not like we have a million listeners. We have over a million listens.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
great.
and yeah, it's really despite what the internet says, that's actually really really good.
Did you
We coach a lot
target
of
one platform first? Because there's the whole argument of like, do one platform first, or did you like, hey, we're just going to push it out there to everywhere?
we focused audio first. I actually think that that would be a mistake if you start now.
Mm-hmm.
What we started in 2017, we focused on audio first and then went video, which is why our YouTube is much smaller than our audio.
Mm-hmm.
If I started today, as I would say, optimize for video
Mm-hmm.
and do audio secondary. So what we do with our clients today is if you come to us, we do your YouTube
Mm-hmm.
and then we strip the audio and make it a podcast, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is a better long-term strategy than what we originally did, which was focus on the audio and then also start a YouTube channel. It's also cheaper because that way you don't need an audio production team and then a video production team. You can just
Mm-hmm.
do a video production team and then strip the audio.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. I've listened to several podcasts where that is definitely the case. Where like if
Yeah.
I'm on the road, I'll turn on Spotify. And this podcast is not even on Spotify. It used to be, and I just paused that entirely just to be totally YouTube. Um, it's
Whoa.
interesting. Yeah. So I know it's kind of mind blowing, but
You
uh,
studied constraint theory. Good for you.
yeah, yeah, like it's everything is a case study in my life. So this whole podcast is a case study. So like that's how I look at
How
it.
long you been going? I should know this. I know.
No, no, it's all good. I started 2 years ago, and then I did a pause on purpose, um, because I have another podcast going at the same time that I did pause too as well, where that has 26 episodes and it's full stop. So like, because I want to see what would happen. Like, I mean, like implosion theory, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, how long does it take before it implodes? Um, this podcast here imploded like minute one. That podcast is actually comparing and contrasting, is showing growth, which,
Really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So like I'm still picking up followers. Like I'm not at monetization, but like I'm have 1,000 plus followers.
Nice.
So it was like last year it was 800 plus followers, and the year prior it was like less than that. And I got to a place where I was in several hundred, and then it was like full stop. We're gonna watch what happens. And like I'm still watching, I'm still observing, still making notes because I utilize that for my web business,
Nice.
because it is a straight, I can look at SEO and be like, bam, here we go. And I know if
Nice.
you do this, you do a full stop, it's still going to show fruit if if it's niche correctly, where this is not niche. This is I don't know what niche
This is yet.
yeah, like it's conversations and they're interesting conversations, but it's not hardcore niche. Like it sounds like you're down to a place of a hardcore niche in essence.
Well, I would say we're niched and unniched. Again, everything's a duality with me, so I know that's probably annoying. But we are holistic self improvement niched,
Mhm.
but
Yep.
it's health, wealth, life, and love. So we're not like a marketing podcast,
Yeah. Well,
right?
this
And
I don't
then,
really target this as a marketing podcast. I like it's just I talk to people. So whatever the heck that is.
yeah,
It's
well,
almost
it's the
entertaining.
Joe Rogan model.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
But like
I've
I don't have
enjoyed it.
like known
I'm
people.
grateful.
Yeah, I have no people on here that I know. Like it's like we're meeting for the first time. We're like most of the time Joe Rogan comes on with these guests that everyone in the world knows, and they're like, "Well, I'm going to tune into the episode because," and like there's another gentleman the same way where you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna listen to him because he's a really good,
Yeah,
interesting individual. I want to see what he has to say."
yeah,
Um, but yeah, maybe it's a Joe Rogan model. I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, but do you run advertising like on your podcast to get more viewers or not? Is it totally organic or not?
Yeah, so we went with we call it the guest ladder versus the listener ladder, but we went
Hmm.
with the brand and market and sell our own products and services.
Okay.
So we have an intro, a midtro, and an outro, and every midtro is a pitch.
Hmm.
Hey, by the way. So, for example, you'd see me come on in the midtro. If you watched an episode, you'd say, hey, by the way, listeners out there, if you really want to journal each day and stay on track, you've got the Next Level Dreamliner. The link will be in the show notes. And then at the end, we do organic plugs, Kevin and I,
Yeah.
where we talk about whatever's up and coming. Like, hey, by the way, we're starting a new book and book club this Saturday. Get your book, boom. That kind of thing.
Hmm.
And he'll say, hey, we have a meetup coming up on, getting your priorities in order and sticking with them for the next 51. So the midtros are canned,
Hmm.
and we have 4 that we run through every week. So every month is different. So no one
Hmm.
gets bored of the same freaking midtro over and over again. And then at the end, we have organic plugs that are based on whatever we're trying to fill in that moment. Because our whole business is community. We have a community. We have a really engaged, amazing community of people. This is what I say. If you're humble, you have
Hmm.
work ethic, and you want to earn your way to success and fulfillment, you're going to love us.
Hmm.
You're going to love Next Level University. If you are arrogant or entitled and you want big rewards for minimal effort, you're going to absolutely hate us. We're not the quick fixers. Like everything we talk about is unsexy fundamentals. Everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's success. I mean, grinding. Like,
I
I
agree.
always use the term like grind. You have a stone, you can grind it down to nothing, or you can grind it and it gets polished. And it really depends upon which stone you want to be.
Well, we are definitely trying to be that second one, and some people really do look for quick fixes. They really
Yeah.
want the shiny status, whatever, right?
Yeah. 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 This is really good. I know we're coming up to almost a 2 hour mark, so I always like to keep positive at the end. So, do you have a motivational statement that you might want to share to the audience that's listening to this podcast?
Yeah, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in the world, some of us are born with a lot more adversity than others. Some of us are born in countries that are much more positive and optimistic and uplifting than others. I was very grateful to get financial aid, and if I didn't, I wouldn't have been able to go to one of the best schools in the world. So I'm very grateful. That said, no matter how hard your past has been, no matter how hard your current moment is, you do have a bigger, better, brighter future on the other side of taking personal responsibility to make better choices starting today. And as much as that might sound fortune cookie, it's mathematically true. It's scientifically true. We all can start making better choices right now, including myself. I playfully joke. I say I haven't taken a day off in 10 years. And the reason I say that is because anyone who starts a business wanting free time is just very ill advised. And not everyone is trying to scale at the level we are. So I'm not
Yeah.
saying not to take a day off for 10 years. But what I will say is some days it's 15-hour days. Some days it's, an hour.
Hmm.
But I never take a full day off. And that's just because of my understanding of the compound effect. So yesterday was a very close to a full day off. I had about an hour of focused effort.
Hmm.
But the reason I say that is because your potential is bigger than you think. No matter who you are or where you are, your potential is bigger than you think, compounded over time. And if you knew the math of that, you'd invest in it more. And so it's sort of this conundrum of, well, I don't understand the math of compounding, so therefore I don't invest in compounding, therefore I don't end up seeing any results. And so that's the doom loop. The success loop is, I believe in compounding and I believe in my potential, therefore I invest in my potential in compounding, therefore I get results. The key word is eventually. It takes
Yeah.
years to see some things pay off.
No, 100%. Like that's a proven metric is actually the business referral. If you're doing everything right, you should get the referrals.
Yes,
And
but it takes a long time.
oh yeah, it's not like a referral next day. We're like, oh
Yep.
yeah, I think you should talk to this person. It could be like 6 months down the line.
It could be 6 years down the line,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's so true. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the seeds you plant pay off eventually, and some of them never do, but that doesn't mean you should stop planting.
Yeah. Well, Alan, this was an excellent episode. Thank you for coming on. I personally enjoyed it, and I hope every listener that tunes in enjoys it as well. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having me. I started with gratitude. I want to end with gratitude. I sandwich everything with gratitude. I really appreciated this very much. It took me back to my video game days. We went all over the place with it, but I think it was awesome. So thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
You as well.
This episode was made and produced by i4 Web Services. Visit i4webservices.com to learn more.